Hey guys, how you doing? This is Mark Taylor back at you again. This is from my podcast, man. Don't knock the hustle. This podcast series I put together, man, for my hustlers of the world. Folks that, they had to, make some money, some non-conventional, different types of ways, you know what I mean? I ain't no angel, I come from the street, right? You know what I mean? So I'm a far cry from that now, but, one of the things that I have the ability of doing, man, is making do on, my current situation, what I got going on in my life, et cetera, et cetera. And some people, like myself, I was dealt a different hand, being a caregiver, having a special needs child and, things to that effect. So, it challenged me and it put me in a situation to where I had to hunt differently, right? I had to get my money differently. So that's what I did. I put together a podcast series, for the folks of the world that, that can't work a conventional 9-to-5 job, right? So it's all about mindset, making sure your mind is right. You know what I mean? Making sure, you're tapping in the right resources around you, etc. Me personally, guys, I haven't quote unquote punched the clock in over 10 years. The only clock that I punched was my own. Right. I like to hang my hat on that. Right. My lifestyle, afforded me to do so because of having a special needs child and trying to work a traditional job was super challenging. So today, we definitely gonna tap into this. I'm looking forward to what we got going on. So I'm gonna run into a little bit of housekeeping, guys, real quick before we get started with the podcast and all that kind of stuff. Like I said before, I am an entrepreneur, right? I run a nonprofit organization, Down Syndrome Forgotten. I am the executive director for my company as well, behind closed doors, right? So you guys will get an opportunity to kind of see that. I do have a book. I have a book, Behind Closed Doors, by Mark Taylor. You can go online, catch that. We have some services and things that we will be putting in place as well. I'm an independent contractor, to the fullest, right? I embrace that role, gig economy, ride share, Uber, Lyft, all that kind of stuff, right? That's kind of my lifestyle, right? It gives me flexibility to kind of move in and out whenever I want to, and I've kind of grown accustomed to that lifestyle. It gets challenging at times. It does, right? It's some benefits to come along with, just getting a regular old check like everybody else, and they can look forward to that. It's something about hunting, man. It's something about hunting. If you don't get out there and hunt, you don't eat. You know what I mean? There's not a good day, or the perfect day or whatever the case it is. Whether I'm tired, whether I'm broke, whether I'm whatever the game calls, I rise for the occasion. So that's kind of a little bit about what I have going on in my life. Entrepreneurship in itself, me hustling for myself, man, has been implemented since I was 7 years old, shoveling snow and cutting grass and things like that. So, this podcast series, man, is to kind of shine some light on that as well. Of course, life got, went on, and I got better at what I do and all that other good stuff. Today I'm gonna tap in on some mindset stuff, right? You guys can catch my podcast on YouTube. Once again, Don't Knock the Hustle. I will be plugging in some resources and things like that. Please like, share, and subscribe, right? Also, this is one of those podcast series that I put together where, it's some grown folks talk, right? So you're going to have to probably tell the kids to go to the other room, right? That's one of the things that I do. So without further ado, guys, I'm gonna chime on in. I just had to make some adjustments along the way. As an entrepreneur, man, I had to dig in my memory bank a little bit, you know what I mean? And I was challenged, by my wife at one point when she was, I had I had a great amount of success in my younger days, at least I think I did. And you know, older in life, I'm moving different. I'm evolving. I have to, operate in such a different way. And it was like, well, what did you do back then that now? You know what I mean? Well, one of them things is, I'm older, right? You know what I mean? My body is different. Everything is just different. I got a family that I'm actually living with. When I was hustling back in the days, I was kind of in and out of relationships and stuff, man. So, it was, being a baby daddy and picking the kids up on the weekend kind of was my lifestyle. Now the kids are there every day. Of course, it's going to, impact, my entrepreneurial ways, if you would. So yeah, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and dive in. One of the things that sits on my heart so high, and I kind of tapped in this on my other podcast as well, is getting high on your own supply. Right? Old phase back in the days, a phrase that everybody used to say, getting high on your own supply. Don't get high on your own supply. Right? Well, today we're going to be getting high on my own supply. Right? And that supply is this. Right? My resources that I have around me. Right? Which leads into my first one, taking my resources, taking what I learned and everything for granted, man. I got some phenomenal books. I got stuff up here and stuff like that. And sometimes we negate from there, right? Now we have the chat GPTs and the internet and things like that. But, the core foundation, the GPTs and all these different apps and social media and all that kind of stuff. One thing that it can't do, it can't, you can't develop the mannerism of entrepreneurship, right? It's certain things that all those things that I just named can affect or touch, right? You know what I mean? And you in order for you, because this term is used so loosely today. Everybody want to be a hustler and all this old shit, but do you really know what hustling is? Hustle. Hustling is bigger than just the word itself or the act of actually getting out there, right? It's a mentality. Hustling is a mentality. And once you learn the mentality of hustling, right, you can hustle any damn thing, right? Some people don't get that. They just know how to move around and go to the act of hustling. That's what they constitute as hustling. Whether it's from selling dope, whether it's from hustling, working 2 or 3 jobs, whether it's hustling, people have their different aspects on it. But me, I'm rich in the hustling and the game. The game is planted here. I can go sell a house and make money. I can sell dog shit to a dog and make money, right? That's just my philosophy. My brain works like that. I come up with stuff, man, and it's so crazy because, now I'd be dealing with, the GPTs and all that stuff of the world, how they, that stuff, man, is so phenomenal. My brain was like that, man, when I was a kid. I was able to just take anything, man, and turn it into a business, man. Everybody used to tell me that. So, yeah, number one, guys, taking my resources for granted, man, not tapping in like I used to, man. I was phenomenal, man, at least trying to get 15 minutes a day, sometimes I used to, back in the days, I did it 3 times a day. I take 15 in the morning, 15 in the afternoon, 15 at night. And I got tons of books, man. I'm talking, Napoleon Hill, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and man, I got all kinds of stuff back there. Richest Man in Babylon, and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's where and it's so funny, I think about all over the years, man. Went out of different relationships, moving around and all kinds of stuff. You know, I lost everything, man. A lot of stuff, man, I got rid of. I kind of, got some new stuff or moving around. But one thing, man, that I kept up with, and it's so crazy. It's so crazy, man. I kid you not. Is my books. My books. When I ain't had no clothes on my back, when I ain't had no furniture, when I ain't had nothing else, I had my books. Right? Because the books, man, was my foundation. The books was my mentality. That's why it don't matter what I'm doing, where I'm at, or where I'm going, right? At the drop of a dime, man, I could turn the hustle on. It's just a matter of time, but until that hustle come, I hustle a job. I don't look at a job as a career. Oh, you lock it in, you got yourself a good job. And I never really got into all that. You know what I mean? I used the job like the job used me, right? So yeah, guys, taking advantage of your resources that you have around you, locking into that. Number two, I have, once again, another old term, sweep around your own door, right? A lot of times, man, when you're in crunches as an entrepreneur, diving into that conversation and really trying to, I guess I can do number three, and then I can kind of put all of them together, and that's reinventing the wheel, right? We always gotta try to come up with some new shit and all that kind of junk, man. And the model to me is I'm not looking to reinvent nothing or nothing real new, right? You know what I mean? I just want to take something that currently exists and I'm gonna put my spin on it. That's what I do. I sit back and watch other people, see how they do things, and then I say, you know what? Well, damn, I mean, you could be over there selling hot dogs, and if you make your hot dog that way, and I might say, well, you know what, man, I'm gonna take them hot dogs, man, and get some tater chips and crumble them up on the damn hot dog, whatever, I mean, just something to make it mine. I'm gonna own that. And that's what I challenge people. So yeah, once again, sweeping around your own door. When you in a fix or you in a crunch, man, and believe me, man, I mean, with this government stuff that's kind of going on right now, and we got the state, man, they acting all weird right now, and both we get funding from the state and from the government. So I tell you, man, all that shit sounds good until they get to cutting them numbers back, right? Until they put a freeze on your money and all this other kind of stuff, right? If you depend solely on that, you're going to be ass out and booty hanging. That's what they say, right? So yeah, I mean, sweeping around your own door, when you're trying to create hustles, when you're trying to come up with something, man, I mean, your first line of fire, man. Your first line of fire, man. If nothing else, if you can run out of dope, you can run out of time, you can run out of money. You can, if I'm talking street stuff, guys. Man, I come from that, right? You know what I mean? You got your little broad out there, whatever you doing. The one damn thing you can't run out is you, right? You know what I mean? I could sell meat any time, any day, right? When you ain't got no re-up, when you ain't got no loan, when you ain't got shit, but you got you got your experiences, you got the things that you got. When you can sell you, I think, man, I'm gonna be honest, I think any young entrepreneur out here, man, the first, before you even think about what you gonna sell and what you gonna do, the first thing you need to be selling is yourself. If you can't sell yourself, you can't sell a damn thing. You can't sell nothing else. Literally. Homeless, sleeping in my truck, all that kind of junk. And literally, man, hey, really put a business together just selling me, right? So if you can't sell you wasting your time. I mean, I come from some of the old greats, you know what I mean? It ain't the product. It ain't the product. It's the person that's selling it. Right? Like I said before, I can sell dog shit to a dog. So, you guys need to hone in when it comes to that. Excuse me. I gotta get me some of this doggone coffee here. I do my late night, when everybody else sleep, I'm out here grinding. I figured, the longest nap I'm gonna get is when I'm gone. I'm gonna sleep like a damn champ then. But yeah, guys, sweeping around your own door, when you're in situations, you're in crunches, in my case, like I said before, having a special needs child, having to, work 1099s and, all the different other avenues of money that I put together, right? You know what I mean? They ain't big, but when you got a whole bunch of little money, hell, it's just like a damn penny bank. You understand me? You know what I mean? Once you start throwing money up in there, and it just seems real petty until you take that damn money and go get it, and you go cash in, and you like, damn, I got $100, $200. You know what I mean? It's the same. It's the same effect. You know what I mean? The way I work, and then ultimately, as opposed to like working a regular job. Let's say this, guys, and I love using this parable all the time, from an entrepreneur perspective and things like that. And I don't knock anyone from working a job. Trust me, you know what I mean? I work jobs my damn self and well, right? I run circles around the people I'm around, right? Because I have the art of being, dealing with people. It is more than the damn job. But anyways, being an entrepreneur in this society, man, I tell my kids this. I tell my kids this too, as it pertains to working. When you be the first one at the job, the last one to leave, and do everything that everybody else don't like to do, and stay away from the gossip, you'll climb all the way up the ladder. And it's been like that every job that I worked at. You know what I mean? I come in the job, I'm bottom shelf. You know what I mean? I ain't even on the fries. I ain't even on the burgers. They got me outside picking cigarette butts up. And I went from picking cigarette butts up to running the damn place. You know what I mean? Because I understood the principles and all that good stuff. But, man, I lost track, man, guys. We was talking about reinventing the sweeping around your own door, information. You don't have to reinvent anything. Most of your answers and everything is right around you. And like I said, it's tied to your resources. It's tied to what you know already, right? And man, I wish I knew that, man. God, I just had a brain freeze, guys. I don't understand. I hate that, But nevertheless, I'm looking at my little notes too, man. Like I said before, you're kind of overlooking your own opportunities. Any of those things that I just kind of tapped off to with you guys. Sweeping around your own door. Not trying to reinvent the wheel, trying to get something. That you don't have to recreate anything. You don't have to put all that extra thought into it, man, and really put some thought in that, you being you. You know what I mean? Sell you. If you can't sell you, then what the hell is you? What is you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Right? You have to really question yourself. Everybody ain't made to be a damn hustler. Everybody ain't made to be an entrepreneur. This shit right here, man, it does something to you. It ain't made for the weak. You know what I mean? When you out here, you execute deals or you talking to people. And then here's another thing, being an entrepreneur, being a hustler, or being a businessman, it don't all look the same, right? I pride myself on just being me. Right? I'm an executive director, right? I go to events with other executive directors and, they got on, big suits and fancy this and fancy that. I literally fall in a meeting like this, right? And everybody said, well, how you get respect like that? Well, I get respect like that, man, because of how I carry myself. And it ain't all in how I dress. It's how I communicate. It's how I move people. It's how I move around people. And that's why I believe, man, I can go anywhere. You could drop me anywhere and I'll jail. I'll get along and make something out of whatever situation that I'm in. To me, that's a hustler. That's a hustler. A hustler is somebody, man, that can come out of a prison, man, during 10, 20 years and come on out, man, within a year, man, they on their feet, new house, new car, 2 or 3 businesses and stuff like that. To me, that's a hustler, right? That's a hustler to me. You know what I mean? And, hopefully everybody kind of, make it. It's just this kind of information, is to make you think, So once again, this is a podcast series, man, that I really wanted to dig into the nuances of, challenging yourself to doing some different sort of hustling. You know what I mean? And me, being you, right? Once again, I am an executive director, but when I get around most people, they don't get that impression because they get me first, right? Especially if I'm coming to an event and I'm trying to, make my way around people and getting to know people and things like that. I don't have to get into a pissing match. Who got the most titles and all this other kind of junk. So hopefully, guys, that information, can serve you right. You know what I mean? In your hustling endeavors. Please like, subscribe, and share, the content. Like, move it around, you know what I mean? Spread the love, That's how I continue to build. I follow a lot of different podcasters and listen to different people. I challenge people to, kind of put me out there a little bit. You know what I mean? I'm rocking my own little thing, and hey, I love to get in the zone too with everybody else. So yeah, you guys can continue to keep tapping in to, don't knock the hustle. Don't knock the hustle. Also, like I said before, all those nuances, some of the things that I do, I made a podcast series out of everything that I do, from riding ride share, to doing auto transport, to being an independent